Hi everyone. In this video I'm going to show you a really easy way to paint a picture of spring flowers, and I'm hoping that it'll vaguely look a bit like this one, but I'm hoping that everybody does something a little bit different. That's the vague plan, and I just want you to use things found in your house. Don't go out and try and source anything, just have a little rummage in your cupboards and see what you've got. So first of all, what do you need? You need something to paint on, and you might have at home canvases. I've got loads, but most people probably don't. Does not matter, because you could also use a bit of old wooden board with a bit of emulsion painted on. You could use a bit of card, if you've got card, or thick paper. Just have a look what you've got at home and see what you've got. Next thing you will need is paint. I've got loads of paint at home. I use acrylics, but you could use poster paint, sample pots from home, kiddie paint, see what you've got in the cupboards. Again, don't go out and get anything special. Cloth for dabbing up spillages, and also another use for cloth, which I will show you. Brushes, we have here a range of brushes. In my first video I suggested using fairly small ones, but for this video you could actually use quite big brushes that you paint walls with. Again, don't try and source anything else from outside your house. You will also need something to put paints in. You could use cups, saucers. I sometimes get foil and spread it around a dinner plate and scrunch it a bit to make little wells for the paint. These are, like my first video, these are things that you get in supermarkets that they balance yogurt in on the shelves. So if you've got any of those, use those. What else do you need? You need a big pot of water for cleaning brushes. Also, for this particular technique I'm going to show you, you will need a big sheet to work on, because you're going to be throwing paint. It might be a bit messy. I'm going to do the video in really easy stages, and at the end of each stage I'm going to hold up my pause sign, so you can pause the video, do the stage, and then carry on. And finally, I will hold up my list of things you need to find, if you can see that. So you might want to pause it on the list, go get the stuff, then I will see you back shortly. Right, you should now have ready something to paint on, pot of water, cloth in case of spillages, any old brush for this first stage. And the first thing I'm going to do is paint the sky, about the top third. It's up to you, you could do half, you could do mostly sky if you wanted to. I'm going to do about a top third sky, and then I'm going to start by painting a dark patch here where all the bright flowers and foliage are going to be. Apologies for the background noises of a cat. I think my cat's trying to join in, and he's also trying to climb the step ladder that the camera is on. So if the camera wobbles, then it's because the cat's climbing the step ladder. And I've tried taking him off and he just howls, so you can have howly cat or wobbly camera. Right, anyway, so we're going to start with the sky, and I'm going to do a really bright sunny blue sky, and I've got a few shades of blue. See what you've got. If you've only got one colour blue, go for that. If you haven't got blue, then go for a completely different sky colour. And when you look at a sunny sky, very often the top of the sky is actually darker than the horizon. So I'm going to start by painting this deep blue. You can see how little thought I'm giving it. A little bit of blue at the top there. And then I'm going to start to dip into the slightly paler blue and kind of blend it in. And skies are never all one colour really, so if you make a streaky mess, that could be quite a good sky, I think. Right, near the horizon I'm going to dip in the white, so it's paler pale it on the horizon, and again, while the paint is all nice and wet, you can just blend it all in. And if you're using a little bit of white, then it could actually be that the white is wispy clouds in the sky. Okay, so there you go. Oops, easy peasy sky. Then the next thing, I'm going to paint this bottom bit where all the foliage and the flowers are going to be. And what we're going to do is start with a very dark colour. Then we're going to gradually add lighter and lighter and lighter foliage, and then add the flowers. And it is the flowers that are the fun bit, because you basically just throw paint. So I've got very dark indigo. You know, you might have a very dark brown. I would avoid black, because black's quite a harsh colour. Or not, use black if that's all you've got as a dark colour. There we go. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to completely paint that in now, and I'll leave you to do the same. So, sky and a dark patch. So you should have now a board with sky and a dark patch. Now, apologies for my head getting in the way of the last shot. Nobody wants to see my horrible straw hair so close up, so apologies about this. This is not a professional video at all. Anyway, doesn't matter. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to start to put foliage. And foliage is, well, very often green, and I'm going to just choose deep green there, squirt it into my paint pot, and I want to make it as dark as possible because we're going to start with really dark foliage and gradually make it lighter. So I'm going to actually mix the green into my indigo, so it is a really dark green. And because we're going to be splatting this on, you need to water it down a bit. So I'm going to just add a little bit of water and mix it in. So it is like runny ink. Okay, so mix it nice, and it really is important that it's nice and runny, because if you get it even slightly claggy, it will stick to the brush and you might just get massive big chunks coming off your brush onto the painting. So I'm just going to mix that in. Okay, so that is a nice dark green. And what we're going to do is we're going to splat foliage onto the canvas, but what we don't want is it all over the sky. So this is where your cloth comes in handy. So I'm going to shield off the sky, but just leave a little bit of the horizon showing, so that you do get a few sort of splats breaking up the line of the horizon. So what I'm going to do is simply dip my brush in and splat it on. And if you use a nice big brush, this probably isn't big enough, you get bigger splats. And I'm going to carry on doing that. And near the horizon, you might want to do a few flicks just to break up the line of the horizon, because you get sort of foliage sticking off in the distance. There we go. And then carry on splatting. Now, it's really important that when you do this stage, you cover all the surrounding area. My whole house is covered in paint splat, so it doesn't matter, and my clothes, but you probably won't want that. So make sure that when you do this, all the surrounding area is covered in cloth. And what I might want to do is your foliage in the foreground looks bigger, so you could do a few just blobs, bigger blobs with your brush. See how little thought I'm doing this, just splatty splatty, blobby blobby. And I'm going to completely cover all of it in paint. Now, it's very tempting to then, when you think, oh, hurry up, I want it to dry quickly, to blast it with a hairdryer. But if you do it with really runny paint, it tends to sort of blow the paint sideways, which, I don't know, might be quite a nice effect, but I'm not in any hurry, so I'm just going to completely cover this and then go and have a cup of tea, piece of cake, watch some more rubbish telly, and then come back to it when it's really completely dry. Apologies, I forgot my pause. Here we go. Here's my pause sheet, okay. Right, pause the video. I have let my painting dry now, and it doesn't look particularly pretty. It's just now a dark patch with very, very slight sort of blobs everywhere, dark green. And what we're going to do is going to repeat the whole process, but with a slightly lighter green. Now this is where you need to shield your sky again with a bit of old cloth. And again, doesn't matter if it's not precisely lined up with the other foliage. And to make a slightly lighter green, I'm going to mix a bit of yellow into my other green, and I'll first of all squirt it in my paint pot. Get a wet brush, and then I'm going to scoop the yellow into my existing green. Now, I might add a little bit of white as well, just to lighten it a bit. There we go. I'm doing this very quickly, so you probably want to wash your brush in between so you don't get all your yellow all manky. So as you can see, I've now got a slightly lighter green, and whoops, dropping it everywhere. Hold on. Need an extra arm. I'm going to add a little bit of water, like I did last time, and mix it in nice and runny. So this is again is a lighter green that we're going to add over the top of the darker green. And like last time, you just splat it on. And again, in the foreground, you might do some bigger blobs for nearby leaves. There we go. And then flick it a bit. So I'm going to do a few little flicks for far away foliage on the horizon. That's it. You're going to so much fun. You just throw it on. And what you might also want to do at this stage, if you get a fine brush, you could sort of skim the brush through the paint and make little stems. But what I'm going to do is just carry on like this, all over, until the whole thing is covered. And again, slightly bigger blobs in the foreground than in the background, and then again completely let it dry. Then after that we're going to do a slightly lighter colour, and maybe after that another slightly lighter green, and then it gives the effect of sort of dark shadows with foliage in the foreground. Because when you look at foliage like a hedgerow, it looks really complicated, but you can't be bothered to paint every single little stem and thing. So this technique just makes it super quick. Right, I'm just going to, oops, I'm completely covered in paint now. I'm going to pause the video, let that dry, and come back and do another layer. So this has pretty much dried, and it probably doesn't look vastly different to the last time, but it's ever so slightly lighter. And what I'm now going to do is repeat the process by adding actually a little bit of this lighter green into my yellow to create a very pale light green. So add a bit of water, oops, and mix it in. Hold on, let me put this down a sec. So squash all the globs of yellow. And that's it. You might have such a great load of paints at home that you don't actually need to do mixing. You just squirt it straight out the tube, but you probably don't, so mixing is the way forward. That's it. So again, much lighter, and don't forget to shield your sky so you don't get too many blobs on it. And then do blobbing. I'm actually going to add a little bit of white just to make it even lighter. And again, just throw paint without thinking too much about it. And like we did last time, I'm going to do a few little flicks of littler leaves and foliage in the background, like that, and then anything in the foreground can be bigger blobs. And again, you might want to do some vague big leaf shapes in the foreground. I'll stick to littler blobs further away. It's quite therapeutic. There we go. So I'm going to leave you, covered in paint again, leave you to do that, and then we'll see what it looks like. It might be that that's enough foliage, or you might have been bored of foliage already, in which case we can crack on with flowers. But I'm going to leave that to dry, see what it looks like, and then very soon we can start to add the flowers. So I'd like to pause the video and do that bit. So I have let my foliage dry. And I mean, this is ever so rough, but you can see that there's vaguely sort of leaves in the foreground and then smaller bits of foliage in the background. Now, if you wanted to lighten the foliage anymore, you could do. I'm just going to stop there and crack on with doing flowers. And you can always do more foliage later if you want to, but I'm just going to show you roughly how to do the flowers. Then you can get on with it. Now, first of all, I am going to do a similar technique, but just randomly spatting colours everywhere to try and give the impression of a complete sea of wildflowers. Then the very final stage we'll do in a little bit is doing the odd flower in slightly more detail. So what I've done is I have chosen some really bright colours. Now just see what you've got at home. I've got, flowers are often pinky colours, so I've got a couple of pinks, a blue, a bit of white to add a few highlights, and then yellow. But I mean, just see what colours you've got in your house. And what I've done is I've just got some new paint pots that I've washed out, and I've watered down each of the colours. So again, they're just like runny ink. So first of all, don't know what that is. I'm going to again shield the sky from blobs. There we go. Then clean brush, I am going to start with, start with a bit of pink. And again, I'm going to just throw some blobs. And again, flowers nearby will be bigger, so don't worry too much about having big blobs. Then as they get further away, they get bigger. Now, if you accidentally blob a massive bit, you just give it a dab. And there we go. And again, so all you're doing is giving the impression of, oops, I've splattered all my other colours, doesn't matter, of a sea of wildflowers. And again, in the foreground, bigger blobs. Now, ideally, what I do is I then completely wait for that colour to dry before doing the next. But all I'm going to do is very quickly show you. Just pick another colour, bit of blue. That's it. And then repeat the process. So, and then do it with all your different colours. And it just gives the impression of a hedgerow or meadow with lots of wildflowers. Right, so I'm going to leave you to get on with that, and then see you shortly. So we are nearly there. So you've got your sky, you've got your foliage, you've splattered flowers. Now what we're going to do is add just a little bit of finer detail into the foreground, and that's going to trick the viewer into thinking that the whole lot has got more detail. So if you look at this picture as an example, looks really complicated, but all I've done is picked a few flowers in the foreground and done them in more detail. And when you look at the picture, your brain kind of thinks, oh, the whole lot is really detailed, when it's not at all. Now, if you cannot be bothered to paint more detail on, you could just print off some flower pictures or go through magazines and cut out little flowers, stick them on like this, and do little ones in the distance. Or you could, I found these random little things, I don't know what they are. You could stick little sequiny things on. yeah, have a look in your cupboards. You could, if you wanted to, go through some old button boxes. And I mean, that could be, I don't know, dandelion clock. Here we go. So now is the stage where I want you to completely do your own picture and go as mad as you like. As well as doing a little bit of detail in the foreground, you could paint a few birds in the sky. I mean, they don't have to be totally detailed. I've done a few, I mean, those look quite fiddly, but I mean, those are very simple, just in the background. So I'm going to choose to paint detailed flowers in the foreground, and honestly, it is not that hard, and you can do it in as much detail as you want. So if I get my paints, and I'm just going to use a finer brush, and I'm going to do, for example, a daisy. Now, a daisy is quite simply a yellowy blob in the middle. Then wash your brush. There we are. A yellowy blob with some white bits around the outside, and it is as simple as that. So there we go. Oops, so I should usually let the yellow dry first, but there you go. That's a daisy. So yellow blob with white blobs on the outside. Buttercups even easier. Buttercups are just yellow blob with yellow blobs around the outside. So that's a buttercup. You could just do central blob with, oops, this is quite gungy paint. Oh, it's not working. There we go. You get the rough idea. So I am now going to just, oops, that was a bit of a mess. Doesn't matter. So I'm now going to do paint on some more detailed flowers in the foreground, and that will give the impression that the whole lot is really detailed when it's not at all. So I am going to get on with that, and I'm going to leave you to do whatever you like. Again, you can do buttons, sequins, you can do more stems, you can do birds in the sky, you can do a sun in the sky, you could do even a hot air balloon in the sky. This is the point where I want everybody to just completely do their own thing. So I'm going to pause the video, I'm going to finish my picture, and then see you back shortly with the finished painting. Okay, so this is my finished painting. I've been a bit boring and just stuck to paint. I'm hoping that most of you ditch the paint and just go for full-on buttons, glitter, collage, things in the sky. I mean, I've done a few little birds, but you know, I'm sure you can think of something more imaginative than that. I've done some pinky blobs in a line with a bit of white paint dipped inside, and that could be foxgloves. I've done a few, I love dandelions, but again, they're a bit fiddly, and you know, life's too short. You could just print them off and stick them on. I mean, I remember going on a botanical illustration course that was given to me as a present, and it was, you know, it was a few hours of, it was quite good, but the woman who was explaining it, she could easily spend several days painting a tomato. Life is too short. Anyway, so last thing to do then, once you've finished your picture, put your name in the corner. I've just written Jen, so much easier than my full name. And one last thing, when we are finally allowed out and you're able to go to the shops, you might want to use some spray varnish just to spray your painting, because it gives it quite a nice shine and protect your painting a little bit. If you do have a go at this video and you want to share what you've done, I'd love to see what you've been up to. And if you do have a go and can bear it, you can email me at my Hotmail email address. You can send it via my Facebook page, Jenny Urquhart Art. You can tweet it to me at Jenny Urquhart, and or message me on Instagram at Jenny Urquhart. So I hope you enjoyed the video, and please share it to any other bored people, which is probably most of the population, and hope to see you soon.